Alrighty. Hello, everybody who is joining the replay. Where are you at? Where you've been the last few days? We better see you in the next few. Um, so today we are on the fifth day, our throat chakra day. We are with Mia. I have actually had the pleasure of working with Mia. She has helped me move through blockages within all aspects of my life. So I'm excited for her to be on with us. And yeah, Mia, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what you do and what you offer.
Yeah. So, hi everyone. My name's Mia, and yeah, super excited to be here. And I am a life coach. I'm an intuitive guide. I'm a sound healer, many different things. But the main thing that I've been focusing on the most recently, is grief work. So I've been really supporting people with processing their grief. And sometimes that's death of a loved one, sometimes that's changing chapters, recognizing that a chapter of your life is dying away and that you have to process that grief so that you can emerge into the new chapter. So yeah, that's really the main thing that I've been focusing on helping people with. And I do one-on-one grief work, and I also am going to be offering grief circles here in the near future.
Nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, so kind of how we're starting like off every conversation, I guess, just to get it going, is what makes you feel aligned with the divine?
Mm, yeah, I really love that question. I feel like for me, what helps me feel aligned with the divine the most is really just recognizing that the divine is everywhere and within everything. And within that, we can recognize that even the most imperfect moments in life can really be super, super beautiful and are just perpetuating this like further flow of the unraveling of the universe, and just learning to trust that. And, rather than like only thinking that certain things are sacred and that I need to like do all of these things in order to make sure that I'm staying in the frequency of divinity, basically, it's just recognizing that like all of my imperfections are sacred as well, and allowing myself to honor that and trust that, and like really honor if there's emotions that come up that don't feel super good, if there's patterns that all of a sudden I'm realizing, or if there's inconveniences in my life, all of it is just redirecting me closer and closer to the divine. Yeah, so I think it's just keeping it simple like that, just trusting that everything is sacred and allowing myself to keep my heart open and keep my soul open to witnessing that, being present with that.
Nice. Okay, I like that. It's such a good reminder because especially when you like are on the healing journey and you have like that dedicated practice, like we can get caught up in the flow of the everyday life, but then just having that moment to pause and being like, right, this is all a part of the divinity, the good, the bad, the positive, negative, whatever it is, it just all is a part of that divinity.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, because certain practices are so important to keep us, centered and everything. And also we're human beings, and sometimes we slip up and sometimes we forget. And
mhm.
just because we forget sometimes doesn't mean that we're no longer aligned with the divine. It's just that we're humans, and that's sacred too. And so it's nice to have that balance when we're on a healing journey of, yes, being devoted to certain practices that we know are really helpful, and also letting ourselves just be human sometimes and like as much as possible, ideally, right? And
Mhm.
loving that too, loving the human experience.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like giving yourself that grace when you kind of like stepped off the path a little bit. Like, because I feel like there is something to being like aligned, like I feel like that we all hold like a very specific resonance, and like I just wrote a post about this, so I'm really inspired by it. But it's like I truly feel that there's so many different inputs that I'm constantly like trying to like maintain my own frequency, but there's like Wi-Fi, 5G, people are texting me. Now my emotions are haywire, like loud noises sometimes like raise my blood pressure, like there's like I think it's like a balance of what you said is like seeing the divine in everything and recognizing yourself as that divine. You know, I feel like without that, it's nothing. But then it's like also those practices that we come back to when we are feeling like a little bit out of alignment, you know, however that feels for people. I feel like everyone kind of like has a different experience of what they feel like when they're out of alignment. But
Mhm.
and I think that's really fun, like throat chakra work, which is like aligning with your truth and speaking your truth, and at the same time being truthful and honest with yourself. And like part of that is understanding that like part of the journey is like redirection, refinement, you know, like
Mhm.
and being able to look at it from that stance instead of being like bogged down in the like disappointment.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I feel like, yeah, there's like a certain nuance within all of that that's super important to note that you touched on there of like just because everything is sacred and that everything is divine doesn't mean that you should just be quiet about how you realign yourself with what your truth is in those certain scenarios as well. And it's so important to speak up and to share what is true for you, because that is the redirection in itself, right? Like, it's not just about being passive to the way that life is unraveling. It's about like navigating through that and being a part of it and really playing with that through speaking your truth and aligning with love within that way of just being true to yourself and speaking up about it.
I have a question
Mhm.
for you.
Uh-huh.
I feel like grief counseling and like grief coaching and is like such a specific niche. So my question for you is like how what were some signs along your journey that like pushed you in this direction? Like what were those glimmers that were like, okay, like this is my purpose, this is what I'm stepping into? Like what were some things that helped you kind of guide you down that path?
Yeah, it was definitely a huge part of my life's journey. When I was 17, my mother died from suicide. And that was such a huge catalyst for me. I mean, first it was like a huge spiral down. You know, it was really dark. I didn't have a lot of support. I wasn't on a healing path when this happened. I was really struggling mentally a lot when it happened, actually. So it was like a downward spiral for a while. And then eventually I hit this like turning point where I realized, okay, I can either keep going on this trajectory that I've been on, and it's not taking me the way that I want to go, or I can just start making huge changes. And that was when eventually I found spirituality and going to like personal development seminars and getting my first coach and actually talking to people about what I had been going through, because I was in such deep isolation during that time. And once I started talking to people and sharing what I was going through, I started to really heal. And what I found was that grief was a way of connecting me to life in a deeper way than I had ever experienced before. And also to recognizing that there is this like unseen veil that we can connect to. Very shortly after my mother died, there were a lot of really powerful moments. It would take a long time to share those stories, but basically, those moments showed me that she's still here. She's still here on the other side. And there is this world that we can't see with our physical eyes that is very real. And that eventually opened a door to me for realizing of that I can connect with her whenever I want, and I can see how she's communicating to me through the universe, through a song on the radio or a bird that flies by when I think of her.
Mhm.
See all these subtle things, and through that I'm was also able to start recognizing that the universe is always communicating to me, whether it's my mom or whether it's just a greater force that's guiding me. And so through that journey, I saw how much grief, firstly, is a huge thing that everybody goes through. And it doesn't always have to be the death of a loved one. Sometimes it's, yeah, just like the grief of not speaking your truth when there was a boundary that was brushed up against, and then being like, oh man, like what would have happened differently if I had spoken up? And so there's so many different ways that grief shows up. And for me, I've realized that it's one of the biggest catalysts for healing and transformation. And so, yeah, that's kind of the reason why I'm here doing this now, because I feel like it's so connected to spirituality. And not a lot of people are talking about it in that way specifically. A lot of the times it's very clinical in the way that it's talked about. And for me, I like to talk about it in a way and support people through that in more of a spiritual way where they can connect with life and not just think that, oh, okay, I'm just going to learn how to cope with this and get over it, but learn how to walk with grief, because you never just get over it.
Yeah.
You learn how to walk with it, and you learn how to let it be your teacher.
It's such a powerful story.
No, that's a lot to process in itself. That's, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny that you say like communicate, like you were able to see how the universe is always communicating when
Mm-hmm.
you were allowed yourself to like recognize the grief, be in it, and then like alchemize it. Like you said, it doesn't just like go away, or you don't like let it go. It gets integrated into who you are so that you can transform and
Mm-hmm.
with it. Because nothing like happens to you. It's always happening for you, as they say. So
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that people have to come to those conclusions on their own too, right? So a lot of the work I do is based around like just creating containers for people to go through grief in the way that they are meant to go through it, and not like, here's the first step, here's the next step, here's what it's going to look like. It's no, let's just create a space for you to process this in the way that is best for you, so that you can come to that conclusion, or whatever conclusion you have about it, in your own way.
yeah, I feel like Western society, like you said, like from a clinical standpoint, it like generalizes grief. So it usually is just like, here, put a pill on it, but it's not getting to that root cause of like, where is this coming from? And, or like teaching you, like you said, like healthy ways or a healthy space just to allow that grief to come up in whatever shape, form it wants to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a step-by-step process for everyone, or the same step-by-step process to get to work through and alchemize grief. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And when we talk about the throat chakra, there's so much isolation that happens with grief, and that is one of the biggest things that blocks people from actually healing from their grief and learning how to like let it be your teacher. Is they just think, oh, it's going to be too much of a burden, or maybe they
Right.
have some really spiritual experiences and maybe they don't want to talk to like a clinical psychologist about that. Maybe they think that they're going to think that you're crazy, or that you have some sort of other mental disorder, but really you're having an awakening in some sort of way, or connecting with them in a very real sense. And so
Mhm.
a lot of people just don't speak up about these experiences. And that's why I think that like it's just so beautiful talking about the throat chakra in relationship to grief, because staying silent is one of the biggest things that blocks our healing in so many different facets, right? Even beyond grief. And so, yeah, just speaking your truth, that is so important.
Absolutely. That's what I was gonna say. I feel like a lot of like a big theme of the third chakra is like make your mess your message, you know, like whatever you're going through, like that is happening to you, you're integrating it, you're assimilating it, you're allowing yourself to experience it. But then part of like overcoming it is like sharing your story, sharing your experience, like making it into art in whatever way that is, whether it's your coaching program, whether it's like a song, whether it's like a painting, you know, like there's so many different vehicles for which you can take the experience that you have and bring comfort to others who are also going through that same experience. And I feel like grief is like one of those emotions where there's like we like in our society we only really give ourselves, it's only really acceptable to be grieving for like a couple days, you know, like the death happens, the funeral happens, and you're back to work after that, you know. But I don't, I
Yeah.
mean, my own personal experience with grief is like, I didn't process my own grandfather's death for probably like 15 years. Like, you know, like there's so much shame around feeling sadness and feeling emotion and like really allowing ourselves to like feel. And that's not even if there's like family members who are like trying to be strong for, you know, like, so I just feel like creating that space to like speak and like I think that not even just guilt or grief, but like just speaking how you feel has such it's such a release, you know, like even if you don't want to, even if it's like the biggest secret that you've ever kept in your entire life and you finally feel vulnerable enough to tell it to like one person who you trust, like just speaking it out your mouth is so healing.
Absolutely.
It's like you
Yeah.
finally let it go.
Hmm. Yeah. And
Sometimes you like hear it through your own ears too, and you're like, wow, I've been holding that in for so long. That was so silly.
yeah, and it just like moves everything like, oh, now there's all this space for whatever else has been trying to come in to actually be able to start coming in. Yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
So what are some practices then that bring like, I guess, help you activate or balance that throat chakra? What do you do
Yeah.
when you feel stuck in not being able to speak truth?
Yeah. It's interesting because like my journey with the throat chakra has been super interesting. I was diagnosed when I was 14 with something called vocal cord dysfunction. It basically was like these two parts of my vocal cords weren't moving the way that they're supposed to. And they were making this motion that literally felt like I was dying all the time, like I couldn't breathe. And I was super quiet, and I really struggled to speak my boundaries and to speak my truth. And it was just a struggle for a long time. And that didn't change until I started really listening to what my truth actually is. You know, I think that that's a huge part of what stops us from speaking it, is maybe we don't even know what it is because we don't believe that we're worthy of even
Ugh.
having that space within our own minds to know what we want or know what we want to say. And so, yeah, it was really like a self-love journey of healing my throat chakra, of just allowing myself to recognize that I am worthy of having an opinion or even having a thought that's my own. And then from there, just actually speaking it. And you know, on a practical sense, like one of the things that's been super healing for me is singing and just vocalizing sounds. And a lot of the times people think that we need to sound pretty when we're, you know, when we're doing like vocal toning or we're like doing the tones for the different chakras and everything. And for me, like I like to get like really like ugly and like 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 crazy, like just like crazy noises, like as weird as you can get, the better, because that's what's going to open up all of those different like neural pathways that haven't been opened in such a long time. You know, we think that, you know, okay, we're going to do some vocal toning. So, and especially as women, it's like, oh, we need to sound all pretty and cute. And it's like, no, like bring that, bring that energy in there, like sound like a monster, sound crazy, like get it out. And then you're going to have so much like space in your body to just say whatever you want to say, because then those neural pathways are open in the way of like no longer judging yourself for how you sound or if it sounds pretty to other people or how it's received. It's just like, no, this is my expression right now, and I'm gonna do it.
I can totally relate. I feel like I'm someone who like has bit my tongue my whole life. You know, it's not always been like really safe for me to like speak my opinion. And when I did, sometimes I would be punished for it. And I think that like that has just kind of like been like a theme that I carried with me for a really long time, of like just being afraid to like speak my opinion and what might happen if I did. And I like love to sing, but I just stopped singing altogether. I was terrified of even like letting my voice out or like hearing my own voice. And like one, teaching yoga, I had to get over being using my voice if I wanted to teach a yoga class, you know, and that was a big thing. I'm like, oh my God, how do you get over like hearing your own voice? Like it was like it was like shame and like, you know, no self-love at all. But like as I, you know, used my voice more, and then I started chanting mantra and I started like singing songs, and all of a sudden I'm like so able to set a boundary. And, you know, like at first I felt a little guilty about setting those boundaries, you know how the journey goes. But I I have to agree that like just letting out like the most guttural, like I call it my demon voice, because like
Yeah.
it needs to come out sometimes. And I do it like more often than I want to admit.
Sometimes you gotta just, yeah, let that dark, like dense energy get out, because that's what it's finally there in that like space of like, okay, like, and so you're either gonna shove it back down into your heart or like keep it in your mind. So might as well just like let it out to get that channel flowing again.
Yeah, and what better way to do it in an intentional way like that? Like if you don't get it out in the vocal toning, then it's going to come out in some other like passive aggressive way or just straight up like toxic way.
Yeah, I feel
And
like
so why not?
self-sabotaging way. That's how I
Yeah,
always experience it. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't release that one time. And now I'm like sabotaging my whole business.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
What time is it? We are
About 10 more minutes, I'd say.
yeah.
good.
So
Okay.
when you're working with your clients, when
Uh-huh.
you're trying to like elicit some sort of like, I know you said that you really just like set the container um to experience grief, but with people who you feel like have like a block at their throat chakra, who like have a hard time even like voicing how they feel, or um
Hmm.
like what are some ways, like do you have like certain like things that you coach them on, like is there things like certain things that you guide them through? How would you like um suggest to one of your clients like to open up and to share their truth?
Yeah, I mean, I think like one of the first things, just very simply as a facilitator, if there's like some blockages between, the client maybe not wanting to share or to like really go into those deep vulnerable places, is just building that rapport with each other and just like not trying to like penetrate super deep into all of the stuff right away, and because then that can make them feel even more guilty of like, oh gosh, I paid for this session and now it's not going as deep as I like know that I should be, and like what's wrong with me and all of that. It's better just to start really gentle, right? And just just get to know each other and just like start very, very soft. And I really like to use guided meditations. That's like a really, really helpful thing, and in a way that's interactive rather than just like, you know, and visualize this and this is the thing that's happening, but like maybe let's go here and why don't you tell me what you're experiencing, and then we go from there, and then we go another place, and then why don't you tell me what you're experiencing, and then we go from there, and that kind of starts to open the doors and bring them into their body. And through that, then there's more comfort of like going into those deeper places, and then also it kind of gets them out of their logical minds and into like the real stuff that's underneath, because a lot of the times we're just in our head and
Mhm.
we're just like trying to figure out what to say and we don't know what to say, and then if we just breathe and go into our bodies and ground and explore more in a more in like that meditative way, it's much easier to get into those places. Yeah.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is it's like a lot of like lower chakra work, like grounding in the moment, grounding in the body, grounding in the
Hmm.
experience, like first chakra work, grounding in the emotions, identifying emotions in the second
Yeah.
chakra, and just like having the confidence and the self-acceptance from the third and the fourth to be able to like speak how you feel. So it's like a little bit of everything, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it's like exactly why, this challenge is starting at the beginning and going up. It's like you have to build your way up rather than just
Mhm.
trying to like expect that like it's all just gonna blast open for you. You gotta, start with those lower chakras and work your way there. Yeah.
Mm.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, what are some of the practices that you do when you feel that you need to activate, balance, or just tap into that throat chakra?
Um, I love to sing. Oh my gosh, that's gonna be so annoying. I love to sing. I feel like when I am feeling really blocked, like it's very vibrational for me, like the guttural noises that I make when I'm like in my demon voice, or like when I'm singing, it like vibrates my body to like a certain like resonance that I feel that makes me feel a lot better. But there's like so many other different things. Like if you're not comfortable with singing, like some things that I use with my clients are like bee breathing, like where you like take a deep breath in and buzz like a bee on the exhale. Like that for me is really calms my nervous system, but I also feel like it very much like shakes up all of the blockages that I feel in this area. I love to chant mantra. Like chanting mantra has really built that connection from my head to my body, where like I felt like there wasn't like a solid connection coming up and down, like I very much lived in my head or like up here, and not really in my body at all. So when I was sitting in meditation, my mind was just crazy. But mantra just really helps to connect the upward and downward movement, I would say. Some other things, what else do I do? I don't know. I feel like those are like really my only practices. But oh, lion's breath. Like I'll take lion's breath in whatever pose I'm in. Like I just love to like stick my mouth out or stick my tongue out and growl like a lion. For some reason, like I feel like that opens my jaw, which like I carry a lot of tension in my jaw too from like probably like holding my tongue, you know. So yeah, I would say that just a mixture of like, and just like radically speaking my truth, like not holding it in anymore, giving myself permission to really say how I feel and trust that it's what needs to come up in that moment, and trust myself that I know, or that I have the ability to like handle whatever comes up. You know, I think that for me, a lot of the times when I did hold my tongue, it was because I didn't like trust that I would be able to handle the situation in like a mature and productive way. Like I would either like shut down and make it worse, or I would like rage blackout and like make it way, way worse, you know, like it's like, so it's finding that balance. But like as Mia said, you know, or as we kind of all said, it was really like being, it really all starts with like being rooted in yourself, feeling nourished, like not feeling like you're in survival mode, you know, feeling safe. um and then once you have that like solid grounded container, like allowing yourself to go a little deeper, like try new things, say how you feel. And I think that the more that you do that, or the more that I did that, at least, the more I felt like confident and empowered to be able to continue sharing. Where like maybe in the beginning I would only chant mantra like by myself in my room, and like if my roommates were at home, like I wouldn't chant it out loud. But now I just like am loud and proud and don't give a shit. Like I'll just post my Facebook, my Instagram, like here's me chanting. You know, it's like it's a gradual journey. So I feel like that would be the only advice I would give for anyone who is working through throat chakra, is like it doesn't always feel good at first. You know, like it definitely feels uncomfortable and scary, and like you might want to feel like you want to like crawl into a hole after you do it, but it really is like liberating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and recognizing that like what's going to happen if you never speak your truth? Like, yeah, it may be uncomfortable in the beginning, but if you really look at it, like if you keep not speaking your truth, then what is that gonna create for your life, and how are you gonna feel? And you know, that might feel way worse than the discomfort that you experience in the beginning. So it's worth it to just take a chance and just try it. Just try something new. Just try and, you know, speak up when the time comes.
Nice. So like we've been talking more like when the throat chakra is kind of blocked, and like doing like the like opposite side for somebody who's like overactive in their throat chakra,
Mm-hmm.
all out, like I don't even really know what that looks like, because I don't think I've, well, I know what it looks like, I guess I know the type of person, but like have you worked with anybody like that, or do you have any
Yeah, I
I
mean, the
just
first thing that comes to mind when you say that is just, it's kind of like the same thing of just trusting yourself and aligning with your groundedness, because a lot of the times it happens when we're way up here and maybe we don't trust what we're saying, and so maybe we need to say a bunch of different things and see what lands for the other person. But rather it's just like zoom in instead of like zooming, like focusing on the external of like how you're being validated by the other people. Like lean on yourself for that validation, and just deepen into trusting that you know what is true for you, and really
Mhm.
focusing on those grounding practices, I think, because I feel like a lot of the times it's about just, you know, you're way up here, you're not so sure what you're saying, you're not so sure how it's landing, and it's just because there's not as much of a connection with your body.
I think also
Or
it's
like
like learning to use discernment, you know, like
Yeah.
words mean things, like words like hold like sacred vibrations, you know, and like even if even just our thoughts are super powerful, just as powerful as speaking them out loud. And it's like learning to like use discernment when you choose your words, you know, because they really do matter. And like I think like in doing that, you know, some of like the excess things that come up, like gossiping or like small talk, you know, like those all of a sudden start to feel like a little bit less like you feel less called to chime in on those conversations or to speak up in those times, because you recognize that like everything really does have a divine resonance, and like we can speak our truth and we can be more aligned, or we can speak things that aren't kind, you know, speak like ahimsa, like doing harm to ourselves and others through the words that we choose to say and the thoughts that we choose to think.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's so powerful when we have those excess symptoms of like over talking, and learning to listen too, not only to like our own inner guide, like you had said, Mia, but like learning to listen to others and like really listen for meaning and not just for the response.
Yeah. And knowing what's just an insight that's for you to just keep to yourself, and what's something that is actually necessary to contribute to the conversation.
Yeah.
I feel
It's
like
funny. I've been
culturally people need to know that. Like you can have opinions and you can keep them to yourself, especially if they're going to be like harmful to the people you're sharing them with. Like you could keep that in your head. It's okay.
well, just like you said, like the small talk or gossip, like it just becomes like you just don't want to engage in it.
Yeah.
And that's like back, I'm currently back home working in a restaurant, and there's just it's that weird, like I'm 2.5 months in, and now it's just like I noticed myself getting almost like caught up in the gossip the other day, and I was like, I just like had to I just walked away from, like, she was talking to me. I just completely walked away because I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like this is not, and this has also just been a good reminder for me of what I don't want to be around anymore either, and like how powerful words truly are. Like when you surround yourself with that, like you start to, and it's not even like on purpose, but you start to almost like become that frequency kind of thing. You don't want to, like, for me anyways, like I'm not a gossiper, like I don't want to do that, but it almost like sucks you in kind of thing. And then you like, that's when you're like, all right, the discernment comes in, you're like, okay, this is not what I want to be engaging in. And then like either just walking away like
Well,
I
we're like
did, or
vibrational beings, you know, like when two vibrational beings are close to each other, vibrating, having similar thoughts, having conversations, like they're attuning to the same vibration. And that's why, like, when you're with people who bring you up, you know, you're brought up to their level too. It's like, and that's very much, I think, throat chakra work is like those vibrations that we all like, that resonance that we can either attune to, like holding our own, or and surrounding ourselves with people who raise us, or putting ourselves in situations where we feel like we're being kind of like lowered to a different level, where there's a need for all of them and a need for knowing how to like hold your own energy and hold your ground. But when we think about like what we are like at our essence, it's kind of understandable, you know, in those situations, to understand like why we do sort of become those conversations and those thoughts.
for sure.
Mm.
Everything is in frequency.
Well, Mia, thank you so much for being here. I see that we only have like less than a minute, so we'll cut this off. But I'm going to tag you in our Facebook group. So if anyone who catches the replay has any questions or anything, hopefully you can just answer them right there. But I'll post all your socials and stuff too, so that they can follow you and stay in contact with you if they want any of your amazing offerings.
Beautiful. Yeah, so much fun, you guys.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
thanks so much, Mia. Thank you.
Bye.